Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Tech Talk, a podcast where Amit and I talk about various technology related topics. Today, we're going to talk about Metaverse. Well, when I say Metaverse, we're going to talk about Meta and anything and everything related to a virtual world, virtual reality in general, but we're going to mainly focus on Metaverse. I'm very excited to talk about this. This is one of the up and coming topics. A lot of you have requested to talk about it, and we've also been really excited to explore some of the technologies. I've tried some of the virtual reality headsets and seen how it is in real life. Well, not in real life, in virtual life. I'm very excited to share all of it with you. And Amit also has some interesting insights that we would like to talk about. So yeah, without further ado, let's talk about Metaverse. What's your thought on Metaverse, Amit?
So I think it's a very interesting topic. I mean, Facebook renamed its whole company to Meta because it feels that Metaverse is going to change, or it's going to be the next big thing in the digital world, or the technological world. It's going to combine a lot of technologies. So I think it's a very important topic to explore within this podcast. And I think many people might be curious to understand what it is, why Facebook changed its name. Is it similar to the internet? What happens? What can you do, etc. So I think it's a pretty interesting topic to explore.
Yes, absolutely. And this brings me to the kind of the journey of Facebook into in terms of virtual reality in general. So Facebook has been interested in virtual reality for quite some time, actually. So in my career, I started as a mechanical engineer, and I was working as a design engineer for a virtual reality company for quite a few years. And while I was working, I was exposed to different technologies that existed at the time. This was about 5, 6, or even 8 years ago. And interestingly enough, there was a very up and coming company called Oculus that was
Yes.
becoming very popular. And Facebook bought the company, very quickly, and kind of invested heavily on virtual reality. I think amongst all the tech giants, Facebook kind of realized that VR or virtual reality or this whole arena could become very popular and powerful in the future. So they invested very heavily. They bought Oculus and Oculus had their own headset, and Facebook improved upon it. So Facebook has been, a serious player in the virtual reality journey from the beginning. There were other tech giants also tried, and they are also coming up with quite interesting solutions. Like Microsoft, they had HoloLens or something similar. I'm sorry, I might be getting the names wrong. Google had Google Glass, and they are still, investing heavily to, get a market share of this new arena. But Facebook has been serious about this from the beginning, and the fact that they went as far as changing their name to Meta it says a lot about how what do they think about how powerful this whole industry is going to be in future. And I totally agree with it. I mean, the more and more our work life is changing, we're working from home a lot often, and we're trying to find ways where we could communicate and connect as if in real life from the comfort of our home. And virtual reality allows for that. Uh, Metaverse is obviously Facebook's solution to a virtual world where you can do all kinds of stuff, live your second life, to be honest. But at the same time, while it's all good, but we also have to look at the counter side, the other side of the coin, in this sense that virtual reality has been around and been researched on, and a lot of company has put in a lot of talent and effort in this space, and they have made a lot of progress. But Facebook, by renaming itself Meta and calling all of virtual reality as Metaverse, kind of trying to take the whole of the spotlight from every other creators and every other talented company's combined effort to come to a really good solution. But then again, Facebook is also creating a really strong and stable marketplace for all kinds of virtual reality items.
Yeah, I
So
think.
overall,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
interesting take, virtual reality, and I think a lot of people think metaverse is related to virtual reality. Well, virtual reality the means to experience metaverse. So I mean, if we want to just educate our audience, to start with, the metaverse word was actually coined by an author, Neil Stephenson, in his novel Snow Crash in 1992. So that's where the word was first used, and it's an alternate reality, different from your real world. So we all live in a real world, and then we also have profiles and avatars on the internet, and that's a digital world. Now, what if you could live in the digital world with your own house, your own currency, with your own car, with your own land, property, with a job, etc. And you can also have a life outside the digital world, with a career, house, car, etc. And that virtual world is nothing but the metaverse. So like the universe, it's a metaverse. This concept was explored really good in the movie Ready Player One, directed by Steven Spielberg. So it's again based on a novel, but in that, in order to experience the metaverse, or in order to get connected, you needed to wear a virtual reality glass. But that's not the only way in which you can connect. But of course, so this is the idea that Facebook is trying to explore. So you have a metaverse, a digital world where you have digital assets that persist. So suppose you switch off the connection and you go away, you come back a year later, your assets are still there. And because it's a digital asset, you have to make sure that it's not copied by someone else. So you have NFTs involved. So how do you digitally sign your assets to make sure that, okay, this is your asset and not anyone else? How do you make sure that people are not copying your asset? So you have those technologies also getting involved. Plus, Facebook is making one universe, like one system. So it's like a game. So suppose you play Fortnite or you play any other game. In that game, whatever you do, you talk to people. You have your own avatar. You have your own assets. You have your own social profile, etc. But it's only within that game. If you come outside, if outside of that, and you go to World of Warcraft, it's a totally different world, and those two worlds are not talking to each other. Metaverse solves this problem. So now imagine Microsoft has their own virtual reality world. Facebook has its own world. Google comes up with its own. Apple is also exploring AR and VR glasses, so they also come up with their own world. And now you can buy an asset in Apple universe and then come to Facebook universe and still use that asset. And you can still transfer all your avatars and property, etc. And that is what metaverse is. It's like internet. So you can go from one provider to another provider, but your Gmail, everything else remains the same. So it's that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting how this is becoming possible, and it's all because of the blockchain and NFT, really, because NFT is an independent asset, unrelated to Facebook or Apple's virtual reality or Google. So if you own the NFT and it's sort of a declaration in the world, in the blockchain, permanently etched that you're the owner, then Facebook can acknowledge that ownership and give you that asset in its world. Whereas at the same time, Google, Microsoft can also do the same time, because the blockchain is a public ledger and it knows who owns which asset. So this is quite amazing how all of these cutting edge technologies are sort of talking to each other and creating this new world, which I think one of the main sort of obstructions or challenges faced by any new technologies is that a proprietary technology sort of comes forward, a company builds it, and then it doesn't talk to the other competitors' products. But in this case, NFT is making it possible so that your own ownership, the assets that you own are going to be acknowledged in all of these different worlds. And this is what truly makes it more of a reality in the virtual world, I suppose.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed, and it's very interesting because once you have these different worlds, so different companies spend a lot of time in developing these worlds, and they want people to stay in their own world. But then people have an option to go from one world to another world, and uh, and just be there for some time. And that's the whole thing. How do you live in a virtual reality or virtual world? And make it interesting for people because people do get bored. So I want to move from one universe to another universe, and it's exciting, it's interesting, it's new, it's different. So I want to move, and that's what metaverse will bring. So you have the cyberspace or the internet, and then you have metaverse, where you live in your own virtual world. Now, in order for everyone to access this space, I mean, there are different ways and means. So currently, you can see some form of it in, say, Microsoft Teams. If people who in the audience, if they are using Microsoft Teams, currently you have an option of together mode. In that together mode, what happens is it creates an amphitheater or some kind of a virtual world, and it puts your face, just the face, the head, and put it on top of a body, a virtual body, and it's against a chair, and those chairs are sitting in a conference room or in an amphitheater, etc. And that's like one take to it. And in the virtual reality world, you wear a headset which covers your eyes, and those headsets also scan your face, and it can project the image in the virtual world, or you select an avatar, and then whenever you plug in, that avatar represents you, and then you can talk to other avatars, and they are facing you, you are shaking hands, you are exchanging, you are having a conversation eye to eye. And that's another way. The third way is augmented reality or the AR. So it's a mix of virtual reality and the real world. So where you're wearing a transparent glass, and you see some text or image or maybe hear an audio in your head, and it's trying to navigate you, or it's trying to give you some information like you see in movies, like Iron Man. So Iron Man is looking at the real world, and then in his head, the helmet, he can, or it's called a heads up display. So in its heads up display, or HUD, he can see, okay, what's the person, what's his name, what's his date of birth, where is he from, etc., etc. So he's getting all that information while looking at that person, and that's another way of experiencing this. So again, companies have still not figured out what technology will work best, because with wearing virtual reality glasses for a long time, of course, it puts you off. Wearing augmented reality glasses and interacting with a world that it's not real, people will think that you're like a fool, you're stupid, what are you doing? And if you are on the internet and playing around with the avatar, then it's like a video game. So how do you actually make it more immersive? And that's the kind of thing that people are trying to solve, apart from creating the world and making it compatible with every other world.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, this is such an interesting world, and in a lot of ways, I feel like this would, for a lot of people, it would probably be more of an interesting world than the real world. I mean, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and it's up for debate, and it is quite controversial. But yeah, I mean, I if it makes someone's life better, then I definitely there is some sort of benefit to it.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
people are already spending a lot of time in games like World of Warcraft and Minecraft, and many other games, Fortnite. So people are already spending a lot of time in games, and they have a very good social circle around those games. I mean, of course, they're not meeting people in real, but the pandemic has forced people to embrace that kind of reality. So I think Facebook has identified that, okay, if people are going to work remotely, people are going to stay at home, they're not going to meet a lot of other people, then they're going to spend a lot of time on the internet. And in the internet, if you want to be social, you can of course be social in a Zoom call or a Teams call, but then you're just talking. You can't do anything. I cannot bring my mobile phone, or I can't bring my house there, and I can't interact with it. You can't interact with it. We can't celebrate things together, etc., etc. So now
You
imagine,
can you can't also see your peripheral vision.
yeah.
You can only see, and that doesn't give the the personal interaction feel of personal interaction. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. Go on.
So that's the thing. I mean, that connection is gone, and how do you bridge that connection in the real world? And that's what I think Facebook has tried to identify, that okay. And Facebook is one of the companies that are investing heavily in this metaverse, and that's why they've renamed the whole company, and they've told that this is the focus, and they have a vision that within 5 to 10 years we will have a complete metaverse. Of course, it can come even sooner because the technologies that enable it are already there. We have the internet, we have the virtual reality glasses, the AR glasses, we have the holographic technology. So Microsoft is actually experimenting with holograms. So suppose you are standing here, and you scan your whole self with light, and then you transmit that in real time, and at a very remote location. Say if I'm in London and I want to transmit my image in on a TV, on a screen in New York, then that's possible, and it'll seem as if I am there, but it's actually not me in physical self, but in a holographic sense.
Exactly like what we see in movies. I think
Exactly.
Avengers Endgame shown some sort of proof of concept of that.
Of
But
course, yes,
yeah.
it's very early stages for that technology to mature and make it more cheap. But of course, there are a lot of companies who are already experimenting with it, and we will mention some of the links for these companies in our description, the video description, for people to have a look. But I think these are some of the interesting technologies where companies are now focusing on. Okay, you are going to stay online. How do you make it more immersive for you? How do we make sure that you stay there and you enjoy it? Whatever assets that you own, we make sure that it's always there, it's never gone. So how do we maintain it on the servers? How do we scale it up? So if 100 million or 2 billion people log in to the same system in the universe, just like the internet, now it's a virtual world. Imagine 200 billion people. It's not a comment anymore, it's an avatar that's moving. It's like a character in a video game. And imagine 1 billion or 2 billion people logging into this system, and you have to maintain everything about them all the time, and make sure that
From everyone's
from
perspective.
everyone's perspective. So it's a huge infrastructural challenge as well, and I think that's why Facebook has given itself so much time to think about how to solve these problems, how to scale it up. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, 100 people, maybe a million people, 200 million people, they can come online and they can do these things. But imagine 1 billion, 2 billion people, all the WhatsApp users, suddenly they come online. Everyone has a house, so you have to maintain all the houses. Everyone has a car, so you maintain all the cars. Everyone has their own avatar, maintain all that. And then
And their bank balance and
bank
their
balance, etc.,
crypto
etc.
balance
And
and
they're
all of
moving,
that.
and they're moving in the world.
Yeah.
So you have to track their movement. Where are they moving? So you have to generate the world in real time. So
Yes,
you
yes.
cannot have pre-generated worlds and then the avatar is moving. You'll have to generate
There
maybe.
will be governments and intelligence agencies who would be asking for these data as well. So you have to create
Yeah,
analytics as well.
yeah.
So there's so
So
many things in there.
there is, and Free Guy. It was a video game, but it's the concept. It's the movie Free Guy. Ryan Reynolds, the guy who plays Deadpool in Marvel films. So he's there in this film, and it's a video game, but it's a similar concept. Like, okay, real characters and video game characters or virtual characters, they're interacting with each other. How does that work? Because imagine in metaverse you'll have people who are real, but you can, because now AI is advancing so much, you can have virtual characters who think for themselves. Sorry, not virtual characters, but AI characters who have their own
Yes.
mindset, who have their own avatar, and who are learning the game, and who are learning the system, and they are interacting, and you can't tell who's real, who's not, and that is very exciting.
Yes, that absolutely. That is another realm of possibility. But let's. What I want to do is I want to step back a little bit just to sort of clarify all the different terminologies and what's what really for our audience. So
Sure.
what I want to step into is to understand all the terminologies and all the technologies and how they interact together. So if I go step back fully, I think the underlying technology, or what we call where everything else is sort of built upon, is the technology which is virtual reality itself.
No, no,
So
no. It's not. I mean, I wouldn't say virtual reality. I mean, it's a alternate reality to a real world. Virtual reality is just one way to experience it. The infrastructure will still be hosted on a cloud platform, like a AWS
yes, yes.
server.
I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, the cloud for where the infrastructure is hosted, that's obviously the back end of things. But from front end, from how a user sees things, obviously there are different kind of reality. There's augmented reality, there's virtual reality, there's mixed reality where they mix both
Exactly. Yeah.
virtual reality. So what I want to basically clarify is that there are these realities which are and not a proprietary technology. This is just like internet. Everyone knows about this
Yeah.
technology.
No one owns it.
Yes, yes, yes. So that's what I want to focus on, and that's what I want to distinguish from metaverse to virtual reality. So for the sake of our simplicity, we're going to call augmented reality, virtual reality, all kinds of reality as a generic term as virtual reality, and then for virtual reality, there are various technologies. Like, for example, there are Google Cardboard, where you can create
Yeah.
you can wear a headset with, and put your mobile phone in it, and it will display in a way that it feels like you're immersed into their world. And then there are various mobile apps which generates this kind of visual, so you're immersed into the Google Cardboard. And there are not just Google Cardboard. There are Samsung's headset display. There HTC also has one. Things like that. So there are many ways or many technologies that will give you the immersive display, and that's one way to get into virtual reality, a
Yeah.
reality that's created and programmed by humans, or
Yes.
so that's the technology, and that's how you get onto it. Now, Facebook, by owning Oculus Rift, which is a company who created one of the headset that was quite ahead of its time in terms of technology and the screen lagging, etc., and advancing on that technology, they created this world, which is what they're calling metaverse. Now, metaverse is not virtual reality as a whole. Metaverse is one world, just like Fortnite, just like any other video games, but it's so much more, so much bigger with so much more possibility. For example, as you were saying, Amit, that different games have their different worlds, but they don't talk to each other. If you own some assets in one world, you can't transfer it there. But metaverse is allowing to have a world where you can create your own virtual self with various assets like house and a car, and not just house and a car. You could own a sword. You could create a character for yourself, for
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
your dream life. You want to be a warrior in some sort. If you can be that, you could be a different gender, a different person altogether, and and make all of your fantasies come true in terms of what different personalities that you want to live. And that's not the only thing that you can do. But what I want to distinguish is virtual reality is a proprietary, non-proprietary, a generic technology that anyone can use. Facebook created a world which is metaverse. It's just like any other worlds, but it has a lot more possibility. It enables other companies to come into that world and sell their
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
And
But just to clarify, Facebook's world is not called Metaverse. That's just a generic thing like the internet. It might be called something else. But yeah, the concept, yes, you're right. People will come and sell products on it.
yes, yes, but Amit, I think I would disagree with you that metaverse is Facebook's world, and Apple will probably have another world. Microsoft will probably have another world, and they're going to call it differently. But the leap of technology is that the asset you own in Google's virtual reality world can also be available in Facebook's virtual reality world, which is Metaverse. Now, Facebook first opened its virtual reality world, which is compatible with NFT and all of the other technologies.
Yes.
So they're kind of stealing the spotlight of all the other.
No, that's true. That's true. And I'm actually
Yeah.
just checking online now what it is. But I think, yeah, they just named it Meta, but they are not trying to, they're just focusing on Metaverse. I think it'll be
Yeah.
just called Meta for now, and then let's see what happens. And
Yeah.
but
I
by the
mean,
way, Oculus Quest has also been renamed to Meta. So now it's no
right.
longer
So
Oculus.
Facebook, the company Facebook Inc., I think, has renamed itself to Meta. So now, even though the Facebook.com exists, but the company that it's registered as is renamed itself to Meta.
Yeah, the
And
holding company. Just like Google.
yeah,
So Alphabet is the holding company and Google is just one part of it.
yes, absolutely. And their shares, their stock name has also changed to Meta. It used to be Facebook. I do own some Facebook stocks, and I see that then they changed their name to Meta. And now, if Meta is a company, and Meta company's virtual reality solution is Metaverse, is what I understand. Amit, feel free to challenge me, and audience, feel free to
Yes.
challenge me, and yeah, please do your own research. But that's what I understand, and so that's what I want our audience to be clear about. That you can experience virtual reality in many different ways. Facebook has a really good solution. I definitely do check it out. Do open an account and check out what all the solutions they have. And if possible and if available, buy one or two NFTs. That is also
Yeah. I don't know if it is working, the metaverse, but I think if there is, then I would also like to try it.
Yes. I haven't tried it myself, so I can't speak from experience, but definitely would want to do that sooner than other.
Microsoft is calling its technology Microsoft Mesh, MESH. So that's what
Ah,
they are
right.
focusing on. Of course, as you mentioned, HoloLens. So that's one of the ways to experience. So Microsoft is focusing on that at the enterprise level, where you have video conferencing, etc. So how do you have a virtual video conference where you have the avatars of people? So you're not looking at a screen, but you're actually looking at a person. Of course, a digital avatar of a person. So it's
Yes.
interesting.
It is very interesting, and I can't wait to see what the next and I'm thinking Elon Musk's project of downloading the brain or reading the brain, if that's somehow
Neuralink.
connected to this Neuralink, if that somehow can be connected to Metaverse, I probably wouldn't need to wear a bulky headset to get onto Metaverse. And then I probably wouldn't come out. So not that my life in real life is,
Boring
too
or something. Yeah.
grateful of what I have, but it would be so interesting because I could design my life myself.
True, and that's I think a very interesting aspect of metaverse. You can design anything you want, and it's just a simple algorithm. You just pay money and you get it. I mean, if you want to buy a house, you're not building the house from scratch. I mean, if you want to, yes, you can, but you
Yeah.
just buy a house and place it there, and it's a digital asset that you own in the world, and that's yours. You can go inside, you can do whatever you want. And a lot of people, they can't own such a fancy house in, say, in the real world. Then for them, it's an escape, and they live in this posh world, and they are
Then again, the limitation will eventually still come, I think, because even to buy a house
yes.
in Metaverse, it will cost a lot of money, and the more people comes, the more it will cost. So yeah, I mean, our
Of
audience
course.
will urge you guys to be one of the first early
It
buyers
might
while it's
be just like a barter system, and slowly, eventually move to maybe a currency in that whole world. And then, like you take currency from one country to another country, you will be able to take that currency that you own in, say, one world to another world. So yeah,
Yes, absolutely, and this will be happening with the various altcoins. And Facebook is bringing its own cryptocurrency, Libra. I think that kind of paused for some time now, but Facebook will have its own cryptocurrency, which would be used in its
their world,
metaverse.
yes.
Yes, and then there will be other currencies that you can exchange from various exchanges. So yeah, the future is looking quite promising and interesting and fun. So yeah, definitely.
It's Yeah, it's interesting like how these technologies are getting merged together. I mean, you had the blockchain. So I think the biggest challenge with any digital world, and me and my friends, we keep discussing about this, is how do you stop replication of a simple digital asset? Because it's so easy to just Control C, Control V in Windows desktop machine. So how do you
Hmm.
prevent and how do you make sure that something that you have is original and it's not a copy? So it's a very
NFT
interesting
on
challenge.
blockchain solves that problem. Yes,
Solve that
absolutely. And
problem.
that was a big problem. That was
but
that was.
but then tracking becomes difficult, so like surveillance. So suppose you have so it's just like cash in the real world, right? So you have cash, and if you buy something with cash, then of course people cannot track what you bought. Once the bank has given you cash, with the cash what you do, it doesn't matter and no one can track it. So that's why a lot of people who want to do some illegal stuff, it's not. So disclaimer, please don't do this. What we are just trying to say is what happens. So people use cash to buy something and it can't be tracked by the government. And Now currently with Bitcoin, it's the same thing. So you have a Bitcoin, but you also have a wallet. The wallet has an ID. So you transfer Bitcoins from one wallet to another wallet. And the wallets are hosted in some companies. And then the transaction from one wallet to another is recorded on the blockchain. So the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, if you know my wallet ID and you know Rinat's wallet ID, any transaction between us, you can track it on the blockchain by searching for our wallet number. But if you don't know it, then even though the ledger is public, you cannot see what's happening, how the bitcoins are moving from one person to another person, where is it moving to. With bank accounts, you can track it, but with bitcoins, you can't. And with CBDC, the topic that we covered last time, it's the same thing. So it is a digital equivalent of cash. So it means the transactions will be anonymous. No one would be able to track what you buy. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
that is while that's interesting, and I agree with you, Abid, there that for a single person or smaller organization, they might not be able to track it. But audience, just a bit of a disclaimer and warning: Bitcoin transactions are not anonymous. So if government wants to and put enough effort in, it is possible to be able to. Yeah, they don't have to know your exact wallet address, but if they go through all the transactions that are all in public ledger and where all of the Bitcoin had gone, they are able to eventually find it. Of course, if for for small matters, they might it's not worth putting that much effort, but it's not fully anonymous. One thing I would say is, again, this is not any kind of encouragement, but there are some services which they call tumble dryer services, where you could kind of wash your bitcoins so it becomes traceless. So basically you send a large amount of bitcoin and they randomly, and other 10 people also sends amount of bitcoin, and then what it does is it randomly sends to a few random wallets the money you sent. So you sent 10 bitcoins, it randomly sends one bitcoin to 10 addresses, but it also got 10 other bitcoins from 50 other people. So there were 500 bitcoins that it receives, and then it randomly sends it to different places. So that becomes um, difficult to trace. But even then, with enough manpower, with enough
Yes,
effort, even then
you
that
can
could
trace
also
it.
be
And I
traced.
think a lot of these AML, the money laundering, I know we are digressing from the topic metaverse, but this is all part of it because you will have to track a type of currency in the digital world if you want to buy digital assets, and people will have to
Yeah.
think how do you solve that problem technologically. So you have these anti money laundering laws in banks now, and what they do is they track money from one source to another source, and they talk to each other. Different banks from different countries, they talk to each other. And similarly in the bitcoin world, it's not just bitcoin, any other token or altcoin, they would be able to track if they are really keen on getting hold. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
going to be very interesting, and these are all the problems that the companies have to think about before they even come up with a suitable solution. But recently, I think there was a big concert on Fortnite, and about I think a million people attended, more than a million people attended a concert in a digital world. So it's a game changer. You don't have to go anywhere. You
it
don't
is,
have to
yes.
pay for parking.
Absolutely, yes. You're happy to buy the concert ticket if you don't have to spend all the other, related or associated spendings, like parking, like going 2 hour journey to get there, and also the food, and
And then coming back home, etc. So
yeah,
driving, you don't have to worry about that. So it's a very interesting future, and
yeah.
that's the aim where we are covering all these topics where they are going to get combined.
Yes, absolutely. This is exactly what I was just about to say. Amit, you also mentioned earlier as well. So we've talked about all of these different technologies separately, but the world is coming. The world of technology is coming into a place where NFT, cryptocurrency, virtual reality, everything is coming into a combined space, which is just creating, a very interesting world out there. And if you guys have listened to our previous podcast, you would have some sort of an understanding of each of these things. And we're going to keep creating other technologies that are a part of this new world, and hopefully will give you enough knowledge to navigate within this world in a time where it's still early, so you can reap the benefit of being an early adopter. The like how people owned Bitcoin 10, 20 years ago are reaping the benefits now. I'm not saying that there would be that kind of 10,000% increase in what you do, but
Yes.
there's definitely going to be some sort of benefit as an early adopter, and definitely do check it out. You don't necessarily have to invest any money, but even if you create, with your time and effort, even if you create a building at this stage, that might become quite valuable in future. So yeah, keep this in mind and definitely explore all the new technologies. That's all we ever say and encourage, that all of the new technologies, keep exploring them. And if you're stuck anywhere, let us know, and we'll make a more detailed step by step podcast or a video episode showing those steps wherever you guys are stuck. So yeah, definitely keep in touch. Keep letting us know where you're stuck or what you would like us to cover. And yeah, this is very exciting.
Well, it was really nice talking to you, Renat, again on a very interesting topic. I think it's interesting to see where the world is moving, and as you mentioned, it's the convergence of all these technologies that's making this new reality possible. And a lot of companies are betting on it. I mean, people are hearing about Apple exploring AR and VR glasses. Microsoft already has HoloLens. Facebook has Oculus that they've renamed to Meta. Steam, the one of the biggest gaming libraries. They are the holders of the biggest games in the world. They have their own headsets. So there are a lot of companies that are coming out and exploring and building technology, and they want to invest. Microsoft just bought Activision, the big game company. So a lot of people are coming into this digital world, gaming world, and they want to make some money out of it. And while making money out of it, they are solving some interesting problems.
Yes, absolutely. And I can't wait to see how these problems are solved. And some of the problems we don't even realize that they're problems, and they're going to be solved. And we're gonna just step into this new world and see how easy or how exciting life can be. So
Yes.
yeah, to the audience, definitely, I'm saying it again and again. Definitely do try these things, do explore them, whether you like it or not. Decide that after exploring them, and try to understand while doing all of that, and how all of these can come together. And yeah, let us know, give us your feedback, and let us know what else you would like us to cover. um, we are going to be again back with you guys in the
Soon.
following with newer topics, and hopefully you guys keep listening to us and keep watching the videos. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much again, Renat, and thank you so much to all the viewers and listeners for tuning into our podcast.
Thank you. Bye.